Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder. They traveled far and had many names, but to those who know them best, they are simply known as Love and Thunder. Hey there, Ninny Nannies, and welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder. If you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, video games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this movie and the MCU in general, so if you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing? Go and watch it, and then come right back here faster than a screaming goat in the Bifrost. All right, before we all get slaughtered by a pale white guy, let me introduce you to my fellow gods joining me today. First up, he's the god of dope style, but if you bug him while he's editing, he's going to take a while. He's JLAW, god of lenses.
I got some Coke bottle lenses on today, so yeah, that makes
big
sense.
ones. Big lens. Yeah. I was kind of going like camera lens, eyeglass lens.
I got some big lenses in my camera bag too.
Also joining us, much like the goddess Minerva, she's here to serve ya. Some beautiful art from within the realms of her heart. She's the goddess Megan Clara.
Another classic geek-centric adventure.
Feels like it, right? How's it going, my fellow gods? I'm stoked to keep the laughs going with this movie. I'm thinking back to it. I feel like we're going to be giggling up a storm here as we talk about it. I'm so stoked.
Oh, yeah.
Now, unfortunately, our other two hosts, the dank demigod Darcy and the god killer Kevin, aren't able to join us because, maybe they're snowed in with Odin, or maybe they're on a call with Heimdall, or they could be getting loose with Zeus. Whatever it is, much like the kids, team Kids in a Cage, they must be trapped in another realm. But listen, I sense with the help of some Viking magic, we might be able to hear from them at some point on the podcast. I think I can channel some energy and maybe bring them in. But before we go any further, kids, gather around and let me tell you the tale of the space Viking who went from dad bod to god bod, and then from sad bod to dad god. Guys, we know what this movie is all about. We don't need Korg to reread it to us. Let's just get right into it. I want your initial thoughts on this delightful movie. Who wants to kick it off?
I will go first. It was colorful, contrasting, and genuinely one of the funniest Marvel movies I've seen.
Yes.
Classic Taika Waititi humor. Mm-hmm. Not only was I like absolutely cackling at moments, but I also had like major sobbing moments in the best way. And also, this movie featured, hands down, one of my favorite Marvel villains to date. So,
wow.
And
not too bad.
Going into it a little bit more after researching for this podcast, there is so much more depth to it than you get off of the initial feeling. So that just makes it 10 times better.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to go back and rewatch it for sure.
Yeah.
This movie, this was delightful. This was, like Meg, like you were saying, this is a Taika Waititi movie. And it's its own contained adventure and not really something that affects the MCU in any huge way, which I think there's a lot of fans who have a bit of a negative reaction to the movie who might have been looking for that. But we got a story here that, doesn't negatively impact any of our characters, and I think it doesn't change anything too radically. I think the mighty Thor and God the Gore Butcher realized on screen was phenomenal. I think this movie was exactly what I wanted from a Taika Waititi movie ever since that first trailer. And I will say it's hard not to compare this movie to Multiverse of Madness, obviously being the most recent one from before it, just in the sense of like, they're both movies with the style and direction of incredible creators, but both of them obviously gave both directors like full permission to imbue themselves into the movies. And I do think for even both of them, it could have been reined in just a tiny bit. But I think with this movie, it doesn't grossly mishandle our main characters to the point where they're making decisions that don't make as much sense. And I really appreciated that. And I think, we were talking in that review about like how, as divided as the fandom was even on that movie, Marvel needs to keep doing this. Marvel needs to keep bringing in these incredible voices that will give us something different and new, and maybe not something that we initially think we want with the MCU. And I know Taika has been in a lot of interviews kind of talking that aspect up of like, he's like, yeah, I don't want to give you the Thor that you want. I want to give you a Thor that you weren't expecting. And I definitely think we get that through the themes of this movie.
Yeah, no, after seeing the movie for the second time, I would say that there are still far more positives than there are negatives. I get that there are people that are iffy about how characters are handled or how stories are handled. But, you said it best, Nate. This is a Taika Waititi film. It is centered on its character. It knows what it's trying to say. I think the only thing I disagree with is that it's not overtly pointing out things for the bigger Marvel MCU, but it's doing it very subtly.
Sure.
And I think that is its strength, is that there's not a big reliance on the film to have to set the tone or set the story plans for future MCU events and stories. It's doing it in its own way that's still building out the MCU so that we know that there's more to this universe. With Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and everything that movie was meant to be, people were slightly disappointed with what that delivered. Some loved it. I think that's where we are with MCU fandom though now, is that every movie's going to hit the audience differently. This is another example of that in terms of how people are looking at it. But like Meg was saying, it's so colorful. It's overtly contrasting in that manner as well for specific reasons. I think Taika Waititi has delivered something that is completely personal and entirely relatable to audiences of all ages, and people just can relate to the core theme of love and in all of its facets, from the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think that Taika is taking these superhero godlike characters and making them humanized and relatable, very much like what he did with Ragnarok. And in that vein, this movie does feel like more of a sequel to Ragnarok than to anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that same degree, like with the style of like how the story is told and some of the reasons I think some people are having issues with it. I mean, I think it's very whimsical. It's immature at times. But I think honestly, like that's what works so well about it. I think people have problems or getting hung up with like, why does Jane get the power of Thor? Or, it's because Thor asked his hammer to protect her. Or why does Valkyrie want, that thunderbolt so badly in that moment for like, what's her reasoning behind that? Like these little kind of story elements that kind of when you watch it and you really focus on it, it's kind of like, yeah, that does seem a bit silly and a little unrealistic, but I don't know, if you allow yourself to take into account that this is a romantic comedy with dramatic elements and action included from Taika Waititi, I think it's much easier to look past those things.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also a lot of MCU fans are starting to get hung up on this thought of, like, as the films grow with us, they have to stay in our age range. But this movie truly is made for all ages. And it's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Absolutely. And I think I like that it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think I've heard a lot of people already talking about it saying, oh, it's not serious enough. I need more seriousness from the MCU. And it's like, I'm like, did you watch Eternals? We don't need
more serious
like,
right now.
If you watch Eternals, that's as serious as it gets with a very similar subject matter of gods trying to be, more human. And I think I like one of the things that I love in this movie is Taika Waititi's sensibility to put so many jokes that you're constantly laughing, so that when we get like the gut punch moments of laughter, we're like hearing Thor shout like, another classic Thor adventure, hurrah! And then it cuts immediately where we see Jane in the hospital, suffering from cancer. That cuts so harsh, and I think that's what makes Taika Waititi's writing and his style of writing so effective, and it's really where that emotion comes from. And I think that's such a fantastic element in the movie is just, again, you're laughing so much, and then you're kind of almost interrupted multiple times throughout the film with these really sad moments.
Just to add to that, in the press conference, someone actually asked how you balance the drama with the humor. And he pointed out that that's very much done in the post-production process. So it's done in the editing, and how they are able to weave together the comedy with the drama and how it hits. And as you insert different moments after one another. So, because he does encourage improv. I think that it's very apparent that this has his style written all over it, from the way it looks and the way it just comes together and has a very personalized story, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that's another great way to compare it, Nate, to Multiverse of Madness. As somebody who maybe didn't enjoy that movie and really, truly loved this one, it's such a specific style, and I'm a fan of Taika Waititi. So if you're not, then maybe this movie doesn't hit you the same way. Right. I'm not a fan of Sam Raimi because I don't like scary movies. So watching that, I maybe didn't feel things the same way Sam Raimi fans would, because, you know, you can't please everyone.
And I think that's the biggest thing, and I think
that's okay.
I think that's totally okay. And honestly, and we said this in that review as well, like, I just, please, Marvel, don't take that as a sign of any sort of failure, that it succeeds for some and not for others. Because again, I think getting movies that aren't just the cookie cutter same thing, like I think phase one, we very much started to feel that near the end of phase one, of just like, okay, it's kind of feeling a bit too samey. And so getting, you know, James Gunn involved and getting, you know, Taika Waititi involved and even Sam Raimi, I think, and, you know, I think it adds so much to the MCU in terms of flavor.
Yeah, allowing directors to imprint themselves into the movie so that they don't feel cookie cutter, as you said, is a way to personalize it and to still make it feel unique. And I really don't think that Marvel cares all that much if a movie fails or succeeds based on that merit. I think that it needs to tell the story, and they feel confident with the story that it's telling. Feige knows that some movies are going to hit for people, some aren't. Some series are going to really hit with people, and some aren't. They're at a very unique point where there's so much content on the Marvel front that's coming out that not all of it is going to be hits. Everyone's going to find something to connect with. I think that they're motivated by that. I think they're encouraged by that because that is how you're really going to create, I think, the most universal concept of what you're trying to achieve is by allowing new voices to tell those stories in their way and give their own take on it. So I think it's a success, in my opinion. Like, Multiverse of Madness had a lot riding on it. So I'm glad that this one just focused on Thor, focused on a really simple story, a heartfelt story that kept it grounded and basically took this god from like myth to legend and in a matter of a movie. So I don't know. I just think he succeeded in confidently telling a story that he knew he could tell.
Well, and I think also too, just on that last point, that Multiverse of Madness was set up to be this really insane movie that was going to blow us through to the next phase of the MCU, and that's not what we got. Thor: Love and Thunder was this movie that was just gonna be fun, and that's kind of all we were expecting. And then it subtly, like you said, Justin, gave us hints of things that are going to be massive at one point, and introducing characters from comic books that we're like, holy crap, they're in the MCU now. And also, just as a final point from me on our initial thoughts, art is subjective.
Yes. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that, again, that is the basis of all of this, is that it is all subjective. It is all what you as the viewer, what it imprints on you and what you take from that. I think, again, as Feige knows that there's all these rumors, all this universe building stuff that's outside of what the work that they're doing, that fans are making expectations for themselves. They're setting expectations for themselves on all scales, but we're letting ourselves down at the end 100%. Of the day, right? If with setting those expectations so high. But that's also the fun of being a geek at the same time, because you get to enjoy in the
have
theories.
These fun conversations.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, I think I love hearing I'm getting choked up, sorry. I love hearing all of the wonderful theories that we talk about week to week. But you know what else I love hearing? I love hearing the soundtrack to this movie. I've not stopped listening to both the score and the soundtrack. I think Michael Giacchino, yet again, the GOAT, working alongside Nami Melumad. They did such an excellent job with this one. This is his 5th time scoring a Marvel movie so far. He's scored the most Marvel movies of any composer. And honestly, I'd be okay if he just becomes the MCU's John Williams at this point. Like, if that's just what they want to do going forward, he hasn't really done anything wrong at this point so far. And I love how he infused, like, heavy guitar, triumphant horns, obviously matches the rest of the soundtrack. And, dude, the heavy metal, like, fanfare, like, rock guitar, butt rock guitar, fanfare at the beginning was so dope.
Yeah.
The metal fanfare was like, I think, the highlight for me hearing that. It really does set the tone for the entire movie. It's fun. It was very fitting to open up with that. But yeah, Michael Giacchino, his score is like thunderous, man. It is thunderous, cinematic, metal, and it is such a good mirroring to the soundtrack, to the pop songs that Taika picked for specific moments, and also for all the marketing and stuff like that. It found a way to mix. And again, we talked about it with Stranger Things, Nate, where, moments were built around the soundtrack elements, the Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But the personal character moments and the more epic, heroic stuff that was more meaningful to characters, that's where Giacchino's music came through and just really hit. It was the perfect score for a god, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Especially a thunderous god like Thor. I mean, Thor.
I mean, Korg. I mean, why do all these names sound the same? No, totally. Guns N' Roses, the entire ride home, both times from the theater, was just listening to Guns N' Roses. I think I might actually, like, I gotta be honest with you. I wasn't a big fan of that specific genre. Not that I didn't like it. I just hadn't really listened to it before. And so I love that, like, this movie was my introduction to like that kind of music. And I honestly, I've not stopped listening to it. When they kick up Welcome to the Jungle, how can you not just get so pumped up? What a great moment. And I also wanted to call out the very first trailer playing Sweet Child of Mine. That's what the movie is about. Like, that's the whole point of the end of the movie. And I was just like, Taika's been telling us since the very beginning what the end of this movie is. And I love that attention to detail when it comes to music in the movies that I watch. And I think it's just, all of it's so perfect. It's so perfect.
Goes to show he's not hiding anything, right? Like, he's not really hiding anything. He's putting a lot of it in front of you. It's just, it all makes sense once you see the movie, obviously. It seems like his attitude is, as you were saying, to tell the story that you're not expecting, but then all the hints are there to really kind of lead you to, that's what the story's about, right?
So good.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like, having one of our general favorite classic rock songs sprinkled throughout the movie also. There's always little blips of Sweet Child of Mine playing throughout the movie, just to, like, hint at the actual titular meaning of the whole film, is, like, a beautifully genius thing that Taika did. A few features of also ABBA and Enya make for one of my favorite soundtracks of any Marvel movie.
And Mary J. Blige.
Yeah.
Let's not forget. Yeah, Mary J. Blige, when she pops out that stereo and she's like, they're bopping.
Jiving,
I loved
dude.
it. It was so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Okay, well, listen, there are so many fantastic moments, much like that. But I wanted to kind of kick things off just by kind of how the movie kicks things off as well. Is I want to talk a little bit about the Guardians of the Galaxy, take a brief moment to discuss their inclusion and kind of what you thought of that. I know there's been, again, fans kind of piping up like there wasn't enough of them. And I'm like, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they're going to get their whole third movie. So just relax. Meg, what did you think of the Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie?
Well, I literally have that exact same feeling. They were in the exact amount of the movie that I hoped for. About 5 minutes of us remembering that Thor finished his story in Endgame with staying with the Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're aware of that. We're putting that piece together now. But they fully, like you just said, they fully have a third movie coming out. They don't need to take over somebody else's movie. Right. And this movie is called Thor. It's not called Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. So there's no need for them to be in any more of it. It was a really fun way to have them sent off with Thor saying, "You can have my ship and my crew," when like it's obviously not his, but it's also hinting at that final moment where he's like, "We know who runs the ship. Yeah, we know."
Right.
So that was really fun.
good.
I would just, again, I'm sure we're going to get the answer in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I'm curious to see where that time-traveling Gamora ended up.
Oh.
Yeah,
But that's for another podcast.
Yes.
But again, this is the expectation that fans, and not just you, not to single you out, but just fans in general,
Yeah.
that are having such an issue with the way the Guardians of the Galaxy are featured here. It doesn't establish anything. It doesn't push anything forward for their story, right? But again, like you said, Meg, it's about Thor. And what does this moment show more than anything is that he was able to bond with the Guardians on their adventures through space, and he has a yearning for his own family, his own love connection, right? That he can have, that has a deeper meaning. And that's really what the Guardians served as sort of the introduction to Thor's depression, if you will. The sad Thor, right? And that he loved doing what he did, but he's trying to find an inner peace that he doesn't really know, but it's all around him. That's the first instance that we see that, especially in the way that Peter Quill is talking to him about, finding the thing that drives you, and that love is that key, right? So I think that they served their purpose exactly as they were meant to kind of kick off what Thor's personal journey is really about through this movie.
Well, you mentioned Peter Quill. I think it's really interesting to see him in this movie as well, with kind of how he's acting. It's a very stark difference from when we last left them,
Confident,
where he almost seemed like he absolutely hated Thor, and now it's like he's totally come around. Like he's like when he's getting stoked and he's like, "Here it comes," and then he mouths Thor's catchphrase like, "This ends here and now." I was like, that's amazing. Like, they've become friends, and he's helping him, and I think that's really lovely. And I would love to see maybe in the Guardians 3 movie if we get to see maybe a little bit of the adventures that we missed from in between these ones, or even a short, maybe the Christmas special will bring something in like that. But I just got it. Like, I loved how it was just a montage of their adventures. I loved how much Drax loved those goats. Like, seeing him giggling while he's wrestling one, he's like, "I love these things." I'm like, yes, it's so good. Kraglin getting married to Glenda, which is just phenomenal. I want to go to that wedding so bad. And yes, Meg, take care of the Milano for me, or let the crew down easy. This won't be easy for them, or something like that. So freaking good. And I think the best part about this was every single character was there and had a little moment. Had a little moment that was perfectly their character. I thought it was so well done, and I think it was, as you said, it's the right amount of them. We didn't need any more, and it just got me more excited for their next adventure. Let's talk about Thor. Chris Hemsworth in this movie, he at this point, I mean, first off, congrats to Chris Hemsworth for getting a 4th film as Thor. Technically, we are getting a Captain America 4, but it won't be, it's not Steve Rogers, it's Sam Wilson. So Thor, this is his 4th movie. To me, Chris Hemsworth is Thor to the same degree that RDJ is Tony Stark and Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. He's perfect yet again in this movie, and I think his line delivery and just the way he and Taika have adapted this character, both from the original Thor movies and the comics, is so excellent. And I love how in this movie we get to see how he deals with loss in his own ways. And I just, the fact that this was a movie ultimately just about him finding love, albeit not in the way that either of us, him or I, expected. I just loved it. I loved this portrayal of Thor so much. It was just, he's come such a long way, and I'm so happy with the evolution that he got in this movie.
He's come through 4 movies and 3 or 4 Avengers movies,
right
on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And his character has evolved so much, and I think at a certain point, I think it was actually Age of Ultron, where he just felt one note. They did such a good job of introducing Chris Hemsworth as Thor in the first movie, but when we got into Thor 2, it just kind of felt very one note. It really was Thor Ragnarok that reinvented the character, and that really comes from evolution that Chris Hemsworth has had with the character, and taking it into this sort of, he's kind of an adolescent. He's a bit of a man-child. To a certain degree. Yeah, he's goofy, right? And I think that's far more relatable than the Thor that he was in Thor 1 and Avengers and Dark World as well. He took himself too seriously. He definitely had a bit of that nuance of fish out of water. I'm in earth and I'm a god kind of thing, but here we see more of a human side to him, and he's evolved the character to make it his own.
But I love that they still carry through the aspect of like he still doesn't know everything about Earth. The fact that he calls them pan flaps and things like that. Like I love that we still get those moments with him. And I think you're right, Justin. Like if he was a god, realistically, we wouldn't be able to connect with him. He wouldn't be. We wouldn't fall in love with him. And I think it's his humanity that does connect us, and his silliness and his faults that make him so lovable. And I just think it's like we see so many gods in this movie. And yes, another one that we're going to probably get a chance to talk about is very silly. But I do think that, this portrayal of him is just, this is what Marvel Comics are meant to do. They're meant to give us these larger-than-life characters that we can see ourselves in based off their experiences. And again, the fact that this is all connected to love is something that we all understand.
Absolutely. And I think also one of the cool things you actually just mentioned that he feels very adolescent-like is you think about his actual lifespan. He would be in an adolescent stage of that, like, 5,000 plus year lifespan, right? So the fact that he is still learning, he's transformed a lot since those early movies. And I would like to point out that Australians have such a specific sense of humor. And I don't think they utilized Chris Hemsworth's ability to play humorous roles in the first two Thor movies and the Avengers movies.
Right.
It may be the first Avengers, but like Taika, again, being
he's Australian,
Australian
He's
or
from
New Zealand, I should say.
Yeah.
Similar sense
right.
of humor, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Having somebody of a very similar upbringing meld with him to bring this side of Thor out, just like you said, Justin, he shot Thor out into being this like much better character. He's so much more relatable, so much more interesting to watch when he doesn't take himself too seriously. So that's one of my favorite parts about Thor.
Yeah, and did you guys ever watch that short? I think it takes place like in and around Civil War, and it's of Thor like living with someone.
Yes,
no,
with
I
Daryl.
haven't seen those
Daryl.
yet.
And Daryl's in the movie, by the way. Daryl
is.
Daryl's the tour guide in this movie, and it was such a phenomenal thing to see that guy canon now finally. And he's so like into everything. Oh man,
it was good. It was good to see him show up in the movie, but I think that really allowed them to experiment with taking the character in a different direction. And I think you're absolutely right. Pairing a New Zealander like Taika Waititi with someone like Chris Hemsworth, who is from that same region, is from that same sort of sense of humor, it will present a better depiction of what that's going to look like. So I think that 100%, if it wasn't for Taika stepping in to say, we could take this character in another direction, we wouldn't have a fourth Thor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think. I think we would have closed off after the events of Infinity War and Endgame with Thor's character.
Totally. Yeah. I love that we're going in this direction with him going forward, where he's going to have more responsibility, and a responsibility that he never thought he would have, or I guess he dreamed he would have it, but didn't know if it would actually happen.
He'll mature.
Yeah. And so I think that's going to be really fun to see this immature dad have to take that on.
But he's not quite a dad.
Right.
She does call him Uncle Thor.
Uncle Thor. Which
dad
is still
figure, but he's Uncle Thor.
just as endearing though.
Oh yeah.
And again, I think, speaking of having responsibility, Natalie Portman, had quite a responsibility to bring the mighty Thor from the pages to the screen, along with Taika, and I think she nailed it. I think she nailed it as Jane. I think it took me a minute to adjust to some of her dialogue delivery. I will say, but thinking about it, like it does kind of make sense that she'd be excited and like gun-ho about the adventure she's on, because I think in those moments where she's excitedly trying to come up with a catchphrase, or she's like saying something like, seriously, heads will roll. Like, I think this is her trying to escape the fact that this is her last opportunity to do more good in the world and to have fun. And I think that that's the biggest aspect about that character that I think
That's
a lot of people
that's a good
are
way
missing,
to look at that,
right? Because I think a lot of people are sort of looking at it and being like, "Oh, that's not how Natalie Portman is. Like, she's in very serious roles. Why is she being so silly and it doesn't play right?" But I'm like, no, I think she would act that way, and if it feels weird, that's even better, because it would probably feel weird to her to be saying some of those things, right? It would probably feel weird to the people, or to the people hearing that, to hear that come from her, and she's going through this experience that, it's horrible, and she gets this opportunity to just have fun. And so why wouldn't you? You're a new Thor, and you can, say things like heads will roll and buddy team up with Valkyrie and fly on a flying horse. Like, just do all the things. Like, why not?
So one of the things that I noticed a lot about Natalie Portman's portrayal of Jane in this movie, in Mighty Thor, is that, yes, she does do a lot of serious roles. One specific rom-com that she did is called No Strings Attached, and it's like a like Friends with Benefits sort of situation, very similar to the actual movie Friends with Benefits. Anyway, her portrayal of comedy is very dry, which suits Australian, New Zealand humor. So this portrayal actually reminded me a lot of the way she acted in that movie. So it wasn't really surprising to me. She also hasn't been in a Marvel movie since 2013. And she's also never been directed by Taika Waititi. So there's like a huge span of time without her. She's happy to be back. She's having fun. She's in a comedy. Like, go for it. I loved it.
I think she was so badass, but I know the scene that you're talking about, Nate.
Yeah.
When she's walking with
on
Thor,
the bridge,
and she's like, and she's like, I'm talking about it, and I don't think that was the best take of that. I think it goes to show that maybe, to Megan's point, improv and that style of comedy and what she's trying to do there, it just felt like she was acting, and all the other moments in and around it, she never really felt that way. She actually, I found right from the introduction of Jane, she slipped right back into that character, into those same mannerisms, into that same sort of hyper focus, and like really into her science and what she's doing. I think she nailed it right off the bat, coming into it. And then when we saw her as Mighty Thor, she's almost like playing up, and maybe that is the justification as to why she's.
That's why I
think.
I think she is acting.
She's trying to be a hero, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So she's literally acting. So I can actually now probably look at it and say, okay, that's excusable, because honestly, she had some of the best action scenes.
Yep.
They wasted no time telling her story, like, very, very well, and then she's just in the rest of the story. All of her action scenes were the most badass action, that we got.
When the hammer splits into pieces and then
in the Asgard, and then it comes back, I like fist bumped the second time. I was like, that is badass.
It's so good. I also wanted to kind of call out, I think a lot of people are also talking about how it does feel a bit quick or shoehorned in with her getting the powers, but I don't think, personally, for me, it didn't fundamentally lessen the impact of her wielding Mjolnir, because according to the lore, in order to wield Mjolnir, you have to be truly worthy, and I think her drive to do good in the world is shown in this movie, and we see it in quick glimpses, but we know that, like, her whole thing is that she can stay alive so she can do more good in the world. And I think that's what makes her worthy of that power. If she can help Thor to become worthy, she herself is worthy. And I think for as much as the MCU at times does break its own rules, I don't think they broke their own rules with this moment. There was a moment that was cut where we see the transformation, which I would love to see, even if they just have like an early version of that. But yeah, I think for people who are upset that, like, it, they didn't really justify it that well, I think they did. I think they did it perfectly.
I think they did.
Yeah.
They did a really great job, right from when she hears the sounds and she looks over to the books, and it is Mjolnir calling her, and she opens the books and it takes her right to the page and she's reading about it. Like, I think what I really actually love what Taika did is he put stories within this larger story.
Right.
Like the way things kick off with the narration with Korg, and that's continued throughout. The next character we'll talk about, Gore the God Butcher, his introduction before the fanfare. That is his story. And we also have this well-placed story of Jane and how she becomes the Mighty Thor, because that was all set up very well, but that's not the story of this movie. Her story is how, when she has the power, how she helps Thor. Right. So I think that in many ways, like I understand like that people want to spend more time with these and see a little bit more of the growth and the development of Mighty Thor. I just feel like that happened throughout once she had the powers and when she was working with Thor and confronting Gore and all of these other elements that took place, right, to her inevitable end.
And I think this is, again, it's a short period of time that we're seeing here.
Yeah.
And she only has a short period of time, unfortunately, to do this. So I think it fits. And I obviously at the end we do see her die tragically in Thor's arms, and they don't let us hear her proposed catchphrase. But I want to know. I kind of asked you guys ahead of time. What do you think she actually said there? What do you think she said was the perfect catchphrase?
Well, I'm going to steal one because Darcy's not here, but it was Darcy's thing and it made me think about it.
Okay.
It's Love and Thunder. I think that is the catchphrase because it kind of ties back to because Korg's story and the way that they were always defined as Love and Thunder. So I liked that idea that's what it was, and obviously given the ending and what we see, it just manifested itself differently based on the outcome of the events, right? So
that's lovely. Yeah. That's a lovely idea.
So nice.
Yeah.
I went a little sillier. I was thinking about some of the phrases that she said while she was like getting all jacked up and trying to think of a catchphrase, and I was also thinking about the fact that it had to make Thor laugh.
Yes.
So either I initially thought she just said "eat my hammer," which she already said out loud, or I thought it would be super funny since she's human if she said "taste the rainbow."
Right,
like Skittles.
That's great.
Yes.
I like that.
She already had like the rainbow thing earlier.
She had
or whatever,
a rainbow
right?
theme going on, so I was like,
yeah.
it'd be funny because she says something about "eat my hammer,"
Right.
something about a rainbow.
Okay.
Taste the rainbow.
I would love that.
Sponsored by Skittles.
Right, yeah. Just put a full Skittles moment right in there.
Yeah.
For me, I went with, because there's that moment right before where Thor says, "I choose love." And I think she whispered to him, she brought him really close, and she said, "Choose love, motherfucker." Or something like that. Like to see her like just, raging down with the hammer, "Choose love," and just slamming it down. So I think maybe, I don't know if she ever had a chance to meet Nick Fury, but I hope maybe at some point there was some sort of influence there. I think would be really, really fun. But speaking of flying down, obviously we see her fly down in one of the most epic moments in the movie. She's flying on I guess it's a Pegasus. Is that what that is? Named Aragorn, according to the comics, which I was like,
no way.
Is that based? Yeah, I'm like, is that based on, somebody will have to write in, or maybe we'll get an answer from Darcy, but I don't know if that's based on Lord of the Rings or if it's based on like actual mythology or what it is. But you know who else rides on Aragorn? Is Valkyrie. And I wanted to just take a moment to talk about Tessa Thompson in this movie. I think she was so much fun. I love, she's getting bored of her life as the king of New Asgard. She's doing commercials for Old Spice with the guy with the pan flute. So good. And like, yeah, Justin, you already called out the moment of like Family Affair by Mary J. Blige, which I think is so perfect as the name of that song for what she wants. She wants a family back again. She wants her sisters back again. And so I think she sees that in her kinship with Jane. It was so awesome. I really, really dug Valkyrie this time around.
I did too, and I get it. Like, there wasn't enough of her, and she felt very sidelined. Like, there's people that have said this, and I'm like, I get it. But this is a movie about Thor, and the supporting characters played their part, and she played her part well, really, and I still want to see more of her. I love the moment with her and Jane at the door when they're getting ready to leave.
They like fist bump weapons.
They cheers their weapons, and I thought that was so awesome, and just the idea of supporting one another and them being vulnerable with one another about what they're really after. Jane is confessing the hammer's not making her any better. Should I really be going? And she's like, well, this is what you need.
Yeah,
you might as well do good with this power. You're a god, right? Yeah. So it's such a good pep talk moment, and I don't know. I think, again, just a great way to utilize a character without overstuffing or shoehorning. Like, I don't know. Like she wasn't so sidelined that she didn't even come on the mission.
Right.
She came on the mission
Yeah.
and she was still integral, and
Huge.
she still showed that there is a part of love that she is lacking, and that is that pain, that from the loss of her sisters. So I think it was very fitting to have her in this.
Absolutely. The loss of her sisters, the loss of the one that she loved the most, and that moment that she has with Face Korg is like hilarious, but also like really meaningful, because she talks about how sad she is. And she has this family, but she lost her.
Love can make you depressing.
Absolutely.
Depressed.
So it's. I think she plays a really beautiful role in this movie. I think she also plays a really beautiful open role in regards to the LGBTQ plus community. We love to see that representation in this film. I'm happy with the amount of Valkyrie we got, because it's definitely not the last we've seen of her. And there are more story options based off of a end credit scene that we will definitely talk about later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I also just love the fact that the way every character had their moment and were still treated like with super emotional moments, but also just super badass moments. Like she was so badass in some of those fighting scenes.
Oh yeah.
There was one scene from the trailer that I wanted them to show where she's licking the blade. Yeah. And I was like, that is so badass. I want to see what happens. But they gave us that shot where she like slices all of those Zeus like bodyguards, and the blood and the gold blood is just falling on her. And she's just like, again, they gave every character a moment to shine where it was like awesome. And I think he gave more than one in the instance of how we see them throughout the event.
Yeah. And when she takes the, I think they're called, one of them, the Zeusets is I think what they're referred to in the credits. She takes one of their hands and smacks a kiss down, and I'm just like, yeah, get it. So good.
I would have liked it if she did the full-fledged kiss. Maybe that might have been a bit much, but I'm sure there was a take of it. Maybe there might have been a take of that just never found its way. Or Taika was like, yeah, they'll never use it, so let's just do that this way. This is the safer way to do it. So yeah, you know what I mean. But
she's of royalty at the end of the day, right? Like she's, she says like a prince.
She was being classy,
or like a knight,
she was being
knight
classy.
of the yes.
Sure.
Wouldn't it have been even funnier if she like forced that Zeusette to kiss her hand?
For sure.
Yeah, but I also love that her character, Val's character, flows perfectly through from Ragnarok, when she's a lonely drunk that thinks she's just gonna die on that planet, to now when she's depressed because she misses the one she loves, but she's the same even when they're in Omnipotent City and they're hiding under those cloaks, and she's like, Thor, you better go now, because in about 60 seconds I'm about to start chopping heads off, like, let's go. She's the same, so I'm happy with that consistency.
Well, you called out, Nate, like her passion for that lightning bolt,
yeah,
right, and how much she wanted it, right?
Yeah.
I just think that was so fitting, right? Especially for what that symbolized to Zeus, the idea of wielding a weapon like that.
Right.
That, I think it was great seeing her throughout when she does have that thunderbolt. Is it a thunderbolt? It's a thunderbolt,
I think
or
it's
a lightning
lightning.
bolt? It's a lightning bolt.
No, it's called Thunderbolt.
Oh, okay.
He says it's
it
called
is.
Thunderbolt. He says you got to get the name right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I was right. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's like you're saying. I think it does make sense now that I think about it. It's like, she could hurt him, she could even kill him, but what's going to hurt him the most is taking away the thing that he's so sort of prideful of and so happy that he has, right? You're taking away his identity, so to speak. And I think, she's seeing that, and especially after the way she sees him acting, just with the two senses that he has. And maybe we'll touch upon his character a little bit later on. But Meg, let's keep going here. You referenced the Korg face. Let's talk about Korg. I was so happy that Korg got to continue all the way through this adventure. The way they bookended, again, I know that's one of my favorite things in movies is bookending, and the way they bookended this entire movie with his narration was perfect. It's like Taika Waititi was literally telling us the story all the way through, and I loved seeing him do the Voldemort thing with Valkyrie on the back of the head. But I got to ask, like, did your heart not stop when he's like, I'm perishing? Like, I literally sat up and I was just like, no. Like, they
yeah.
cut the music. I was like, no way. Like, did you think he was going to die?
It felt very similar to me to that moment in Rise of Skywalker where Rey explodes the spaceship and all of us think Chewie dies.
Oh, yeah.
It was this moment of this beloved character that has been with us since, quote unquote, day one of Taika Waititi's run of Thor. And my heart genuinely stopped. I will say, so glad he continued on to find love himself, but I was a little disappointed that there was no real like consequence to that.
Yeah,
which
I agree.
Continues with other characters too. It doesn't feel like there's any real consequence in this movie, and I think that's one of the things that, again, I'll talk about later. But I love Korg.
Well, his character is so so funny.
Oh yeah.
That he has to find a way to live on through this thing. So I'm glad that he also found love.
I mean, dude, let's talk about that.
Dwayne.
Like, the Cronin he's holding hands with at the end is named Dwayne. With the
his
mustache. Dwayne The Rock, though.
The Rock.
And if that means
exactly,
if that means that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is going to be in the next Thor movie as Korg's husband, would be like, imagine, I can see it now, like Korg's hosting a dinner party, right, and he's like got all the fixins and he's wearing like an apron or something, and then, you know, Dwayne's in the kitchen and he's like, can you smell what he's cooking, or something like that. Like, I just think it'd be so phenomenal. I'm so incredibly happy for him. I'm glad he didn't die, and I love how he was narrating the story, but he was also like giving a lot of foreshadowing as well. Like the moment when he asks Valkyrie if he thought Thor and Jane would ever hold hands over a lava pool to make a Thor baby. You know, she's like, it's unlikely, sadly, but he's like, too bad. I think Thor would make a great dad. And I'm just like, like they just know. They just know. He's so lovely, and I'm just, I don't want Korg to ever die. I don't care how many stakes it takes away.
No, I don't think he will. No, I know. But like, even like, you know, we were talking about Valkyrie before.
Yeah.
You know, she gets stabbed.
Yes.
Like I was like, okay, here's
she
the
goes.
death
Yeah.
of a character that is gonna matter, and I'm pissed about it.
She just lost a kidney.
She ended up just getting like, she just lost a kidney.
Right.
And it's like. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay. So like, I'm glad we'll see more stories of her. But like, again, to Meg's point, the stakes, there's something should have kind of hit home.
But right? I'd love to see her find someone to feel shitty about. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to see that storyline progress, because for her to have died in that moment of being at the lowest state that she's in, she doesn't get to have as much of a resolution as Thor does. I think she maybe finds a little bit of the family and the kids of New Asgard, and she gets to train them and teach them, and maybe that's where she sort of gets a little bit of resolution. But I would love to see her.
Yes.
All right? I'd love to see her kind of get a little bit more.
That's a good point.
Love. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of my favorite references too in this movie in regards to Korg is when they're walking through Omnipotent City and they see the god of their race. I can't remember
the Cronin.
Of the Cronin. Thank you.
Yeah.
And he's sitting on a chair of scissors, like a chair of swords in Game of Thrones, because in Ragnarok he says, "I'm a giant rock. No need to be afraid unless you're a pair of scissors. A little rock, paper, scissors joke for you." Like, it's so good. Genius. It's so good.
So good. So phenomenal. But listen, I know we're all laughing, we're all smiling, we're having fun. But we got to maybe bring the smiles down a little bit, guys, because we're going to talk about Christian Bale. Christian Bale was incredible as Gore. I think it's incredible how much he gave in that role in with the time that he had. I think it's pretty impressive of just how, like, I know he's super talented. It's freaking Christian Bale. But
of course.
Still, like, him in this villain role was phenomenal. And I think it's incredibly important that they started the movie with showing us his story and why he becomes Gore the God Butcher. Starting off with him, like, walking in the sand, and we see him lose his only love is so heartbreaking and so sad. And I think that's so important for your villain, and to get it right out of the way, right away, to see that. And I was like, they killed a kid, like, holy moly.
Yeah. And to also see the downfall of how his faith hadn't saved him, right? Like, you know, he had such faith. He was such a I guess you would call a religious man, right? And he thought that was his saving grace, and it didn't. And that's also another layer of the love that gets peeled back, right? On top of that, and losing his daughter obviously being massive. But I think to see Christian Bale, who has been Batman for 3 movies in a past life, and also starred again with someone like Heath Ledger, who put on an amazing portrayal of the Joker, he gets to come into a role in the MCU and be his own villain. And at moments it felt very Joker-esque, like when he has them all strung up in the shadow world.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Kind of peering into their minds and stuff like that. It just
His teeth.
It was. Oh, and it was so intense. The range that he was able to go with, from being dark and deep to like being upbeat in his eyes, and how he's able to peer into their souls, right? So I don't know. It was so well done. I loved everything about it, and I do wish we saw more of him killing gods.
Yep.
I do think that
Yeah.
is one of the faults of this movie, and
Yep.
I would have been okay if this went to 2.5 hours of a movie and there was a couple more intense scenes with him. Maybe, I don't even know if he needed to push it that much, but like, I don't know, even if it is like a montage scene of him just going around killing people, like I think that could be fairly interesting, right?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things about him too is, like we said at the very top, his contrast to everything else that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
And especially visually, not only before he becomes the God Butcher, but like going through that desert, it's dry, it's muted tones, and he enters this, oasis, and immediately the Taika Waititi comedy starts. But
Yes.
Christian Bale doesn't take that on, or Gore doesn't take that on. He's
Right.
still so serious. And even when he grabs that sword, to me, a rewarding kill when he just shoves that right in that god's throat. It's disgusting and amazing. And then throughout the entire movie, even when these comedic scenes are happening, he stays in his character, and it's menacing and terrifying and outstanding. His one funny moment, there may be a couple sprinkled in, but the one that stood out to me is when he's telling this like kids' nursery story from hell to all the kids that are stuck in that cage.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you just talked about ripping someone's head off and you're scared by this. Like
Yeah.
the snake loves getting his head ripped off. And it's
Yeah.
like so disgusting, but it's also really funny. I think
Totally.
Christian Bale is just like top tier. We all knew that, but shows it in this movie.
He was when we see him approaching New Asgard, nightmare fuel. Like just the way the grass dies in front of him was so cold. His look was fantastic, turning from color to black and white as like the necro sword is infecting him further and further. Just even in that first scene it was so visually incredible. And yeah, Justin, you called it out, like him pulling Valkyrie towards him and just talking about how all her sisters died and the gods did nothing, and then how he immediately says to Jane like, oh, you're like me, I'm dying, and the sword has cursed me just like the hammer is killing you. And I just, again, like that's such fantastic writing, because in those moments everyone in the audience is just thinking, he's kind of right. He's kind of right. And it goes back to the idea of Thanos was right, or that sort of thing. And I think, it's one of the biggest strengths of the movie is his character. And honestly, this is how the MCU needs to focus on their villains, because I think, there's a reason we care so much about Loki or Baron Zemo or Thanos, and in this movie Gore, and it's because we get where they're coming from. They give us just enough backstory to understand their motives. And, it used to be in movies that the big bad guy was just evil because they're the bad guy, and you didn't need as much justification. But now audiences, we need so much more than that. And I wish we had a little bit more of that sensibility, like in the Disney Plus shows, Ms. Marvel, specifically, like we've been talking about on our Watch Club. Because like outside of like Agatha and maybe John Walker, we really haven't gotten that from our villains as much.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things where how can we have 6 hours of a TV show and not get a fleshed out experience with a villain, and only 2 hours with not as much as we would have wanted of Gore, and get so much more. And again, I get it. Christian Bale, But you know what? The MCU, they got, Marvel, Disney, they got money. They could bring in some of this high tier, I think villains into their Disney Plus series.
Yeah, I honestly think that to have someone like Christian Bale step into the MCU just helps build out a villain that is so meaningful. He has a purpose, and to your point, we can relate to his reasoning, and I think that's compelling storytelling. Yeah,
and Gore truly believes in those moments that he is doing good. He truly believes that these awful gods,
he tells her,
need to go, and there's no reason that they need to exist, because so far he hasn't come across a god that's actually helped him. Until the end of this movie, which is just so freaking gorgeous. But listen, we're not ready to get back to talking about happy things. I want to just quickly go over what, maybe what we thought didn't work. Obviously, based off of a reaction so far, it might feel a little bit nitpicking to go through any of that. But I will say, Taika Waititi went on the record of saying that Christian Bale was the best villain the MCU's ever seen. I want to agree with him, but like Justin, like you said, I wanted more of him. I think you're absolutely right. If we got a moment of seeing him kill a bunch of gods, apparently there was some stuff cut where he did kill some different gods and different characters. So I think maybe if there's an extended cut that we get to see, that might make it feel a little bit better. But yeah, I do think we almost got the best MCU villain ever in this movie. But for me, that was the only thing that I didn't quite find worked in the movie.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I believe that there could have been more opportunities to show the dimension of his character, how it wielded him to do these grotesque things and earn the name of Gore the God Butcher. Because apart from seeing one kill, that was pretty much it, right? It was just scary shadow monsters that were there. So Christian Bale did the best that he could with what time he had on the screen, and I would love to see some of those other things. But I guess that's probably a general talking point about this movie, is just that certain things felt a little bit too fast for people. When we look at someone like Gore, who is he's just pouring his heart into this performance, I would have loved to have seen more of that.
Yeah, I think, though, just to rebuttal that a little bit, I think that's how the contrast worked, that he put so much into this really intense performance and everyone else's performance were a little lighter, but I think that's it was meant to be, because it was a story being told to us. Two of the things that I found not so great, one's a little silly, one's a little more, I guess, intense, but I already sort of mentioned it, the lack of consequence, because nobody really dies that we didn't know was already going to die at the end of the movie. I kind of wish there was some big sacrifice. I'm glad that the people we love did not leave us, but I wish there maybe was a little bit more consequence to this movie. And I also am not a huge fan of Thor's blue and gold suit. I kind of wanted him to stay Viking Thor.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was comedic and really funny because it was like so extra big, and a reference to a comic book costume, if I'm correct.
I believe so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was like so big and ridiculous, and I just wasn't really that big of a fan. And seeing him in the Viking Thor outfit with the fur and everything, I was super stoked about that. So I kind of wish he stayed in that outfit. But that's it.
But I mean, if those are the only complaints, then I think
I'm
think the movie's doing pretty good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think some of the funniest moments I think were when he was in that outfit. Let's laugh a little bit. I think, dude, Thor jumping off, flying on Stormbreaker like a witch, like so good. I absolutely could not stop laughing in that moment. The Jean-Claude Van Damme moment, I think, was absolutely incredible. Were there any funny moments that really stood out to you guys?
Well, I loved how they made Stormbreaker have a personality throughout this movie, and just how, obviously I think it's when he's talking with Peter Quill that he references the two loves that have left him. They either leave you a note or something, I think he said, and exploding in front of you, which is obviously Mjolnir. So both loves, he's being reintroduced to both of his loves in this movie, his ex-girlfriend and the hammer that was destroyed, right? So good. I think it was funny how they played into giving Stormbreaker almost like a purpose, because it seems like because he was so frustrated with Thor, he was kind of throwing everything off kilter. And obviously Gore, it needs Stormbreaker as this key element to get to eternity. So I thought it kind of fed into like Stormbreaker being used as a tool for bad, because he was already so like emotionally distraught. But I just love how the hammer just comes floating in at times, like, oh, hey buddy, how are you? Oh, there you are.
It's so funny. Like, I honestly, it's so damn silly, but like, I just, couldn't stop laughing at that. Meg, what were some funny moments you enjoyed?
Well, Thor riding on the hammer was one of my first ones that I wrote down, because it is another callback to Ragnarok when Korg says, "The hammer rode you on your back." Like,
right?
He's like, "No, I rode my hammer on its back."
Yeah.
Another favorite part of mine is when Thor does his handshake with Star-Lord or Peter Quill. Yeah. And he references Ragnarok once again by saying, "The snake you do not trust," because it's referencing the story that about Loki pretending to be a snake because he knows Thor loves snakes, and then he returns back to himself, and then he stabs him.
So good.
That part made me laugh so much. And I thought the goats were going to get really annoying really fast, but they were in just enough of the movie to make me laugh every time.
Absolutely.
It's when the screams landed that made you laugh. And seeing it with an audience, that's what stood out to me especially, is that, you know, when they land in Omnipotent City, they, you know, the crash land, the music ends, and then you hear the goats screaming.
For me, it was the first time they got sucked into the Bifrost. I was like, that's what it would feel like to be sucked up into the Bifrost for the first time.
Fun fact, it's been confirmed that we will see the goats again in the Christmas special.
Yes.
So I feel like they're going to be like pulling a sleigh or something like that. I think would be really fantastic.
Oh my God, so funny. I would also like to point out one of the standout performances of this film. The one, the only, Melissa McCarthy.
Oh my God. The play that they do. Matt Damon as Loki in this movie, Luke Hemsworth as Thor, Sam Neill back as Odin, and then, dude, Melissa McCarthy as Hela. I love how, like, later on in the movie, when everyone's in distress, you just see stupid Matt Damon.
Should we make a play about this situation?
In times of crisis, particularly now, people need entertainment. And it's like, I didn't hear a no, and it's just... It was so fantastic. But yeah, Melissa McCarthy coming out and just, I'm Hela! Like, it was just... that scene, that whole sequence will forever live in my mind. And I can't wait to watch that again and again and again. So good.
Well, I hope Disney Plus puts that out as something like you could watch the play.
Oh, the entire thing.
Of what they did. Yeah. And then they do like the story of like Thor with Thanos and stuff like that. You know, they do their own. That would be great.
So good.
But again, I think what's cool is that for Taika to kind of retell the events, which lead into Jane, you know, coming to see the hammer, they tell the story of what happened in Ragnarok in that play. And I love that. That's, again, just how he's able to handle exposition and fill us in and remind us of these things in his own sort of way, whether it be, you know, Korg narrating something or seeing this play reenact these events. I just think that he embeds story within the story to help tell the story. It was just crafty in the way that he did it, right? So.
Well, and we talk about the idea that, sometimes certain things need to be reined in, but he also has, like, this movie is filled with so much of his stylistic, subtle humor. Like, the fact that there's an Infinity Cones ice cream shop is phenomenal. You know, he does that sort of charm like no one else can do. The Bow God was just so delightful to see, and maybe a reference to Pixar. I think there's also a throwaway line in Omnipotent City where somebody mentions a carpenter god, which I guess means Jesus is MCU canon now, which is incredible. I don't know if Jesus would necessarily be hanging out with those gods in particular, but I was like blown away when I heard that.
I could see it.
Yeah.
But can we circle in that and around that moment? Russell Crowe. where did the comedic chops come from? Like this is no good. Like his curtsy as he skips down the steps, it was so good.
Yeah.
The entire theater was in hysterics. It was so well done.
There was a balance between over the top theatrical mob boss, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Like is how I was looking at his performance. Because he brings in some real mob boss qualities to being Zeus. And I think he also brings the theatricality as well, especially how he was just so boastful and how he was talking about this orgy that everyone, you are not invited to the orgy.
Not invited.
So yeah, I thought it was a good cameo, and obviously as we get towards the end, we'll probably see him come back in that role in some capacity. I'm sure of it. So yeah, he did a great job. I liked it.
Also, speaking of orgies, awkward segue. This is a comparable, not the same, don't at me, comparable character to Jeff Goldblum in Ragnarok. Again, these parallels that Taika's making to his previous Thor movie.
Very true.
Right.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Like another over-the-top being who thinks he runs all of everything and loves an orgy here and there. So I thought that was like a really cool way to bring those two characters together. Totally different performances.
I'd love to see the Grand Master and Zeus
Zeus.
hanging out.
Zeus?
That would be incredible.
I think that's actually very, very smart to point that out, because I think that it helps to create the culture of gods, of these higher beings, and what they do. And to your point, maybe that was a point of reference for Russell Crowe to look at the sort of theatricality and the drama that Jeff Goldblum sometimes had while still being himself, obviously very Jeff Goldblum. But yeah, I think a lot of that groundwork is established with the Grandmaster, and here we can see it continued with Russell Crowe. So that's great. I love that reference. It's a great parallel.
So good.
Yeah.
This is no good. But obviously Zeus thought of himself as the most epic of gods. Let's get into epic moments, guys. I like what would you say
moment?
Give me. You know what? We're running a bit long here. What is your most epic moment in the movie?
The one I'll go with is the one that we get at towards the end, and that is when he is giving his powers to the kids.
Yes.
And you see the tree spread out over top, and when they all charged, like that was another like whoa. Like I just love how he was able to bring an army together from Asgardian kids, and like they were all badass, and to see Astrid or Axel, my apologies, Axel.
Yeah. Or asshole, as Cord calls him. Yeah.
He wants to be called asshole. Just call him asshole. Yeah. I thought that moment, like when that was the one I was like, yeah, let's go.
Well, that for me was my moment as well. I think I'll follow it up though. Like, yeah, Rainbow in the Dark by Dio started playing, and it's just such a fun moment to watch. The kid with the stuffed animal shooting the lasers, and it was so much fun. And I think to follow that up, when Jane flies in on Aragorn and jumps off, and Thor looks at her, and they both kind of give this look of understanding that like this is her final battle. I was blown away by those moments. And I also want to quickly just shout out Darcy wrote in, and like him, I couldn't stop looking at the statues in the background of this scene in the entrance to Infinity. Darcy wrote in and actually mentioned that we see the head of one of the Celestials is the head that falls on the kids that Thor catches. And he said it makes sense because Eternity made the Celestials. So that's why that maybe was there. And I also we see a statue of one of the Watchers. We see the Living Tribunal, which I thought was really cool. And then with a little bit of digging, I also found out that we saw one of Eon, who represents time, one of Lady Death, and then there's a statue of Infinity, who in the comics is Eternity's sister. So again, really cool things that you can see are, like you guys said, in the background of this movie that are building out this movie and do make it even more epic than I think it initially shows itself to be. So as soon as I saw the Watcher, I was like, oh, there's a Watcher statue there, it's so cool. And then I just kept like seeing all these kids like kicking ass, and What a phenomenal moment. Meg, what about yourself?
Yeah.
What was your most epic moment?
I mean, there's just so many great ones. Obviously, there's so many great, like, female empowerment moments as well. And I think I'm going to have to say my most epic moment is Mighty Thor's final strike with her hammer, taking all of the power of the Necro Sword in the hammer, letting all of that lightning power Mjolnir before she says, "Eat my hammer!" I think is one of my favorite moments and most epic moments of that whole movie. I also just want to say that Thor killing Zeus was pretty cool, but with my fault of not having any consequence, that one kind of goes down the drain for me.
Interesting. Yes, we'll touch upon the consequence that doesn't have in just a moment, but I wanted to just say, let's just talk about it. I know we talked about epic. What is your favorite? Was that your favorite moment, or did you have another moment that you would say was like, this is the moment that I will always remember from this movie?
I think anything with Jane wielding the hammer was probably some of my favorite moments. And I think a lot of it had to do with just seeing someone else wield the power of Thor. I think it just shows a lot of opportunity of what can happen next with his powers, and even the fact that he gave the kids his powers was
For a limited time
so
only.
Yes.
For a limited time only. I love how he had to clarify that for a limited time only. I love that he did that. But yeah, seeing Jane wield the hammer, we called it when she's on New Asgard, and the hammer splits apart and it kills all those shadow monsters, and
So
it flies
cool.
back. I was like, damn, that's cool. And then the other instance of when she does that, that you pointed out, Meg, where she, at the end when she catches all of the Necrosword in her hammer, and it's so good. Like, they really made Mighty Thor super badass, and I think she had some my favorite moments.
Yeah, definitely made her own Thor in those moments,
Yeah,
right?
man.
It was.
They did a great
very
job
different.
with her. They did a great job. I was like, for as much as she was just kind of like serving the story, and obviously because of the relationship and all of this, they did such a great job of telling her story really quickly off top, and then she's just a part of it. She has the powers, and they just showed Mighty Thor kicking ass, and that's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see, right? So,
Oh yeah, I think I gotta say my favorite moment of the entire film is literally the very end. And as Nate loves a bookend, the quote that you started this podcast with, I was already tearing up seeing how adorable Chris Hemsworth was acting with his own daughter. It was such
cute.
a beautiful scene. It was so funny, but so full of heart, and I loved it so much. I was already welling up, and then to realize the name of the film is about these two, I kid you not, cue an emotional meltdown. I couldn't hold it in. I was like trying to talk about how incredible the whole movie was and how much I loved it. Stream of tears rolling down both my cheeks. It impacted me the most, I think, because I wasn't expecting it. So I loved the end.
right.
I'm still just the whole. That's mine as well. I think seeing Thor and Love enjoying pan flaps together, and as you mentioned, India Rose Hemsworth is fantastic. She's so adorable and so instantly charming. And I remember actually watching a clip of Taika Waititi that he posted on Twitter of him eating grapes with his daughters, both his daughters at Sam Neill's farm. And he gives one of his youngest daughter, one of the grapes, and she's like, ew, and she starts spitting it out. And she says something to the degree of like, we can't all like the same things, Dad, or something like that to him. It's just like this, like, you can so see his own experiences as a father in this relationship here with Love and with Thor. And I just, I completely teared up. I completely teared up.
When
So good.
when he says, like, they're called pan flaps, and she's like, I've never had those in my life. Like, you've barely been alive at all, so it's so funny.
But she's also reading Jane Foster's book on this like crazy space science that I'm like, I don't know if she's actually understanding what it says, but and like even the way she like tucks Mjolnir in and does its makeup, and it's got like tassels.
So pretty.
It
was boring before.
Oh, it's so good. I cannot wait to see more of her. Yeah, she's just doing the 2 thumbs up
in the mirror. She's just doing the thumbs up with that
so
helmet.
good.
So
Yeah,
cute.
she's so funny. She was cute, and I think the bookend, it just put a bow on the entire film that made it that much more satisfying.
Yeah,
and that much more personal, as you pointed out, Nate. I think that you very much can see Taika Waititi's own experiences sprinkled throughout this story, dealing with the theme of love and the importance of it in all facets and sides of it, from pain to suffering and craziness that it can cause inside of you. That idea, that sense of protection that comes with it as well. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is he's a guardian of love as well, right? Like, he is the guardian of love that will protect her, because she's very much birthed out of love from Gore. So there's layers of poetry there.
I'm so stoked for more adventures. Before we get into our predictions and talking about those end credit scenes, Darcy has also sent a raven. It's just flying in right now. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, there it is. And he wanted to let us know a few things. He wrote in saying that the ending of the movie definitely made him think of the King Thor storyline, which is also done by Jason Aaron. That follows it also follows the God Butcher story. And in that one, apparently we see a future Thor who's one of the last of heroes left at the end of the universe. And we see him with his 3 daughters who help him protect the surviving races as the universe dies. So he said, I think it's really cool that Thor and his surrogate daughter are kind of starting that trend. And I really do hope that we do get to see them fighting as Love and Thunder going forward. And I don't want them to recast her. I don't want them to do an age up. Just have her be involved. I want her in the Young Avengers as like Thor's kind of replacement. I think would be so much fun. But let's kick it off. Let's talk about something here. Let's talk about the end credits. And I want to start off by saying, he's here, he's there, he's every fucking where. Roy Kent. Oh my gosh, Brett Goldstein as Hercules teased at the end. I was so happy. What do you guys think that this means for Thor the next time we see him?
Oh, I don't know what it means, but I just have to say that I was so excited, so much so that I basically jumped out of my chair and was like throwing my arms in massive cheers because I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. And I don't think anybody else in my theater was a Ted Lasso fan.
Oh, no.
Because I had so many people staring at me and like the screen and going, who is that? I even had my friend sitting next to me go, did I miss something? I'm like, have you seen Ted Lasso? And she was like, no. And I'm like, yeah, you missed something.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm excited to see what he's going to do with Hercules going forward. I'm interested with the story because I know Darcy and I were kind of talking about it offline, and they do become friends. There's a short period of time that they are against each other, but they do become friends. They realize they both have something in common. So I do think that they will be working together, more so in the next one than maybe fighting each other, or maybe they work towards working together. I don't know. But I can see them having a bit of a feud, coming together and resolving whatever threat is really out there, or obstacle, if you will.
You must have got the same. You must have got the same raven from Darcy that I got, because yes, that is absolutely what he wrote here. Is that he thinks Herc is going to fall in love with the human realm because he hates his dad because of all the trials that he put him through. All I care about, I could care less about what he ends up his story ends up being. He just better drop an F-bomb in full Roy Kent style. At some point, I don't care when, I don't care how, I don't care if he shows up in a Deadpool movie to do it.
I don't think he will.
He has to. Sure. He has to. Justin.
Yeah, my thought for that was that he'd get a fa, and then it would cut the K off just because it's Disney. But
sure. I would prefer that than having to lead into it.
No, just do it. Just do it. And then of course we do get the Valhalla post-credit scene. Where there's another side to this paper here. Let me turn this around here. Darcy also said that he thinks that the next Thor movie could focus on the rebirth of all Asgardians scattered throughout the galaxy. and having Thor go and find them. Another excellent run from the comics that he was mentioning. Apparently, New Asgard was established in that line, so he thinks that maybe because we've already gotten New Asgard, maybe they'll go the other route and bring these characters in. And he says we're definitely going to see more of the Mighty Thor, possibly even other Valkyries going forward, and maybe even the OG Loki. Which is a very interesting idea of getting that Loki back. I completely agree. I thought at the end when it said Thor will return, I thought it was going to fade in with words at the beginning saying the mighty, like at the sort of fade in slowly or something like that, and be the mighty Thor will return. But it's just Thor coming back. I also really wanted to see Sif's arm in Valhalla. I thought Heimdall was gonna like turn around and then shove her arm into a pile of other body parts of like different warriors who have lost their limbs in battle but have survived. I thought would have been a phenomenal. Listen, Taika, if you want to hire me for your writing, let's go. Let's get me into the next one. But what do you guys think that seeing Jane and Heimdall in Valhalla means going forward?
Well, I definitely think this means we'll see Valhalla again. At least that's my hope, that we'll get to visit it again, if not in a main series or a film. I think it would be super fun to have some sort of short form series with the people in Valhalla, if, unless that resurgence happens or reincarnation or whatever it is that happens with the Asgardians. I thought of a title that they could use, Marvel, if you want to use it. I thought The Life and Death in Valhalla, because you have to die to live in Valhalla. I don't know.
Right. Okay. I like that.
But I also don't know a lot about the comics, so I'm totally coming from someone who's very new to all of that. Though I did hear and research that in certain comic book runs, Mighty Thor and Jane Foster actually returned to Earth as a Valkyrie. So if we're looking at seeing more Valkyrie, I think that would be an incredible direction to go with her.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm on that same wavelength. I think that to see her show up, and obviously being able to see Heimdall there as well, just giving that sort of, I guess, wow factor to being in Valhalla. Who else would be there? I guess the only other wow factor would have been if it was Odin, actually there welcoming Jane. But
oh yeah,
there you go. That would be great. But yeah, I think that second stinger really just hits home that there's more to Jane Foster's story and Mighty Thor that can be told and will be told maybe. So I don't know if that's just a way to kind of leave that out there to see what happens.
Yeah.
Being like contracts and can they get her to do another one and stuff like that. So just, logistics, essentially the logistics of that. And but they can leave that character out there and know that they could return if she decides that she wants to come back. Because I don't know, I don't think it's any sort of ill harm between them. It just might not be something that she wants to do all the time. The same sort of level of commitment that something like Star Wars gave her, where it was like, I think it was like 9 years of her life or something like that, or you know what I mean? Very much committed to those movies.
Which Taika Waititi was reported that he actually forgot that she was in Star Wars completely, which was really funny, asking her, like, would you ever be in a Star Wars movie? She's like, I was. Listen, while you guys were blabbing on about something, I already wrote the opening to the Mighty Thor movie, and it's her and Frigga chilling in the living room. They're watching TV. They're watching The Days of Our Death.
WandaVision?
I think would be the name of the soap opera that they're watching. And so it starts off. Yeah, it kind of starts off as like The Days of Our Deaths, and it's like an act where like we're watching the soap opera, and then it pulls out and it's a TV in Valhalla. I think would be really, really fun. Anyways, again, Marvel, Taika, hire us. Obviously, we all have really good ideas. And so with that, we're you know what? We haven't quite hit the length of the movie yet, and our goal with these reviews and discussions is to be under the length of the movie. So let's get to our rating and ranking of the Thor movies. I think would be really, really fun. So we'll rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 5 pan flaps. And then I want to know how you'd rank this movie amongst all the other Thor movies. All right. So why don't we start with... oh, my gosh. Do you guys hear that? I think I hear the Bifrost coming in. Kevin! Kevin, is that you?
Hey, geeks, it's Kev here with my thoughts on Thor, Love, and Thunder. I just thought this movie was such a refreshing change of pace. So much of Phase 4 has been burdened almost with the weight of setting up the future direction of the MCU. Every movie and television show of this phase has felt kind of bogged down with the responsibility of either introducing the next Thanos-level impending threat or defining the rules of how things work with the multiverse, variant timelines, and other such inner workings. Thor Love and Thunder, or TLT as I'll call it, doesn't face any of these burdens. The movie, while very much a direct result of all the events that have influenced these characters' paths, is a standalone story that simply happens to fit into the grand scheme of things, rather than needing to necessarily influence or affect them. I'm honestly a bit surprised by the slightly underwhelming critical and audience response to the movie, but I also kind of understand it. Unlike previous entries, which are perhaps a bit more dour or serious in nature, TLT is just one big joke. It's almost like if Mel Brooks made an MCU movie, a parody of the superhero genre of today that just so happens to work within the larger construct of the MCU. And I don't think the problem is that people don't get the joke. I just don't think they particularly liked it. I, on the other hand, enjoyed it very much. And that's because, in my opinion, we can't take everything that we saw in the movie as being entirely true or happening exactly as we saw it. I actually think that what we saw is Korg's version of what happened. And so while the majority of events that happened, such as Gorr's quest to kill all the gods, his sacrifice, and Jane's passing to Valhalla all did indeed happen, what we witnessed was Korg's version of how it all took place. Did Thor actually do the Van Damme splits between two alien spacecrafts, or joke around with imprisoned, kidnapped children that they were team kids in a cage? Probably not, but it kind of happened that way. You know what I mean? While Korg isn't the most reliable narrator in the MCU, he's proven himself to be the most entertaining, and his story perfectly weaves the balance between love, loss, heroics, and sacrifice, while putting a smile on my face the whole time. Plus, it sets up an awesome dynamic for the next chapter in Thor's journey, as I can't wait to see the next adventure that Love and Thunder have together. This was such a fun, easy-breezy entry into the MCU, and right now sits as one of my favorites in the genre, maybe of all time. Taika Waititi was able to tell a story that was just dripping with his knack for irreverence, sweetness, and charm. I honestly hope he has a similar approach to the story or stories he tells in the Star Wars universe. At the end of the day, these movies should be fun, and this is fun at a level of infinite splendor. While I don't normally do this, in order to balance the scales against some of the unfairly low scores this movie is receiving, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 pan flaps. I loved every second of the movie and thought it managed to tell the story of one of the most interesting Marvel villains to date with a really original spin. Gorr's quest for revenge feels incredibly justified, and as a result, his redemption creates a perfect character arc for the character. Bill's work here is fantastic, and Hemsworth continues to add layers to an increasingly interesting and constantly evolving character. I completely understand that it's important to create the narrative for the bigger picture of the MCU, but sometimes it's nice to just step aside and spend some time with characters we love. Well, at least if it works this well.
Holy, 5 out of 5? Kevin, that's it. Oh, he's gone already. He went back in the Bifrost. Wow, 5 out of 5 from our own God Killer. Usually he's butchering these Marvel movies. As he said, he doesn't often give 5 out of 5s. That's fantastic. Holy crap.
Yeah, wow. It's so funny that he had the opinion of thinking that this is Korg's version of what happened, because one of the things that I thought maybe wouldn't make this film work was that somebody told me they saw an interview with Chris Hemsworth saying this movie feels like it's written by a 5-year-old. And I had that thought in the back of my head when I went and watched this movie because they told it to me before. And the whole time I was like, yeah, it kind of does. But I loved that about the movie, especially the more I think about it and researched points and things. And now that Kevin has stated that, that's totally what it is. I full-blown agree with that opinion. I think that's such a fun way to show this movie and to show Taika Waititi's humor. So I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree with him as well. I from everything from his take on the story being told from Korg to the exact sentiments that I had at the top of the show, where, the strength of this movie is its ability to stay focused on Thor and less concerned about building out the MCU universe with impending stories and doom and gloom. It is fun, and this is so Taika Waititi in so many ways, which is its strength 100%. So yeah, can't believe he gave it 5 out of 5.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
Megan, what is your rating out of 5 pan flaps, and how would you rank this amongst the Thor movies?
Well, to go back to my initial thoughts, the color, the contrast, and the hilarity of a classic Taika Waititi take on a Marvel movie, this film made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me feel so many things for so many characters in a really simplistic way, and that's why I love it so much, because I enjoy that, like Kevin said, it didn't take itself too seriously, because everything seems to be so serious right now, and we need content like this to get lost in. So
You sound just like the performers in the play. The people need their entertainment in crisis like this.
Isn't it so funny when art reflects life?
Right? Oh my gosh.
And you know what? I'm gonna agree with Kevin. I'm giving this movie 5 out of 5 pan flaps.
Wow.
With all my heart.
Wow. Cook them
and
up.
as for a ranking, it actually wasn't that difficult for me to rank these movies. In 4th place, I have Dark World, not the best Thor movie out there. 3rd place, I've got Thor. 2nd place, I have Love and Thunder. And 1st place, I have Ragnarok, simply because it was the first of its kind, or at least it felt that way. When the Taika Waititi version of Marvel came out, it made such a massive impact, and that's why so many people loved it, because it was so brand new and so funny. So unfortunately, I don't think Love and Thunder can touch that, but it was so good in its own right.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Justin, I know you already dropped your spoiler-free thoughts in our spoiler-free review. Do you have anything to add to that, as well as kind of for those who didn't listen to that, your score?
Well, again, I think upon viewing this movie for the second time, it is very clear that this movie is very confident in knowing the story it wants to tell. The positives, I think, outweigh any of the subtle negatives to this story. And for me, I think that people need to laugh right now. Kevin pointed out everything can be so serious, and I think Taika very much acknowledges that these movies are a sense of escapism, which is why they do so well. And in a world that is sometimes shitty, it's more important to laugh, and you can still promote a really positive message that's centered around such a true human emotion like love. Again, not being burdened by having to do the MCU stuff and just seed planting and building out the world. That's the strength of this movie. It stays focused on Thor, and it doesn't lose itself in trying to do anything else. And I think the parallels of how we see love, from the good, the bad, the ugly, of all of the different characters and how they've experienced it, from a villain driven by the loss of love, and a friend who's an ally like Valkyrie, but is seeking love in a new way that is familial to what she had it before, and just seeing Jane come back and be this sort of new beacon of love and a new motivation for Thor, and a way for him to navigate to this new beginning, or this evolution of his character with love. I don't know. The movie promotes such a positive message, in my opinion, and I think, again, you said it, Nate. This has Taika Waititi all over it. It feels very personal. It feels very relatable, and it's just delivering a fucking bitch in time with 80s metal vibes and just some color, vibrant imagery. And we talked about it in the spoiler free, but Jack Kirby's style all over this was nuts. So yeah, I think I'm going to move my score up by 0.5 to 5 out of 5 pan flaps. Because honestly, this was so refreshing in the MCU after everything we've gotten. It feels almost similar to the experience of Ms. Marvel, and how refreshing that experience feels amongst the series.
I'm refreshed. I'm so refreshed.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And then in regards to ranking, it's, definitely Thor Dark World is at the bottom of that list. But for the top three, I really loved Thor 1, so I'm going to put it at third. I am going to put this movie, Love and Thunder, at second because Ragnarok, I think we mentioned it before, it was the surprise. It really took the character in a new direction and building out the character a lot more. Yeah, I think Taika does definitely take the first two. So,
alrighty. Yeah, I mean, just what you guys said. Yeah, same thing. I think, yeah, this is, as I said, this is exactly what I wanted from a Taika Waititi movie and a Thor adventure. Like Kevin said, I really do hope this is what we can expect from him in Star Wars. I think this movie is divisive because, like you said, people want giant, massive MCU changing stories every time, and I'm happy that this isn't what that is, and it never it never set itself up to be that either.
Yep.
And I think as fans of the MCU, we need to stop expecting that constantly, especially from these directors who are lending these unique voices to this overall story. I think it's good to have a balance of both types of stories. Standalone ones and then ones that push the phases forward. I could not stop laughing throughout this movie. We couldn't stop laughing throughout this podcast. And I think that speaks so much to Taika Waititi's style of humor. The entire cast was so perfect. The soundtrack was perfect. And the movie is just so confident and has so much heart. My only thing was that I wanted more Gore the God Butcher, just because Christian Bale is phenomenal as Gore, and I wanted to see, like you said, I wanted to see him live up to his name. I think we could have had the best villain in the MCU so far if we did get just a little bit more with him. But other than that, this movie is incredibly rewatchable. It's a great follow-up to Ragnarok, even if it falls a little bit short of that movie. And I think, to your point, Meg, it was such a huge surprise, that movie, that I don't think it's possible for Taika to catch lightning twice, or as Zeus would say, thunderbolt twice. So
lightning in a bottle.
That's it. This movie rocked so much. It's so much fun. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 pan flaps.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's such a good time. As for my ranking for the movies, I think my favorite is Thor: The Dark World. I just think the villain in that movie was so well done, and his sort of I couldn't even name the villain. If you asked me to name him, I don't think I could even name him right now. Is it Malachi? Malakin? Malekith? I don't know. Who cares? Yeah, at the bottom of my list is Thor: The Dark World. I will say it's probably better than I remember it if I was to go back and rewatch it now, but it just left such a bad taste in my mouth the first time around. I'm like, I don't know if I want to taste that again. In my third place is Thor. I thought it was good. It's a good movie. It's I think the initial setup of the jokes of like another, like, that's great, good stuff with Darcy and Jane and stuff like that. And then I would say after that, it's got to be a huge surprise. I think Thor: Love and Thunder is second place for me. I know, that's crazy.
Because Ragnarok did it first, right? Like, because it's such a surprise, and
you never forget your first. Right? You never forget your first.
Exactly. And I think that's the other thing, too. Like, a lot of people have been drawing a lot of comparisons. Well, it just feels like Ragnarok done over again. But it's like, yeah, of course, like, he built a world. He's established a world in Ragnarok. Yeah. It's naturally going to feel like that. Because Ragnarok was so surprising in the direction, it'll always be that one that's, like, the best of them, because it took the character in a new direction.
Well, I cannot believe we made it. I think I've gone from sad bod to god bod to dad bod in that entirety of that podcast. So let's wrap up this discussion. That's it for our spoiler-filled review and discussion for Marvel's Thor: Love and Thunder. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on where the MCU is going forward, what's the deal with Hercules? Do you want him to drop an F-bomb like Roy Kent? Well, listen, you can pray to the gods of social media to reach us. Justin, where can they reach us again?
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
but please only reach out if you are devout believers. I would, I don't know. We don't
I
have
want
time
any.
for.
I don't want any orgy emails or any tweets about orgies.
I mean, listen. We'll see. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest shows and movies out now, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for Only Murders in the Building, Season 2, Episodes 1 to 6, The Man from Toronto, The Sea Beast. Also, we had the chance to talk with some incredible people lately, but most recently, Justin had the chance to interview Obi-Wan Kenobi director Deborah Chow and frickin' Anakin Skywalker himself, Hayden Christensen. And there's a really sweet moment between Justin and Hayden where they discuss Star Wars fatherhood. So go give those episodes a listen and a 5-star review if you don't mind. And lastly, we have our This Week in Geek episodes where we talk about the latest trailers and news. In our last one, we talked about the sequels to Avatar, as well as our thoughts on the newly announced Tiana's Bayou at the Disney parks. We drop new episodes of This Week in Geek every single Wednesday. Megan, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-filled review and discussion. And as we say, love ya.
Bye.
Peace.